Hey everyone! Tonight we step into a story so tense, so quietly devastating that you might not survive this one. I mean it. This is one of those nights where the smallest sound in your room might suddenly feel a little too loud. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you truly enjoy what I'm doing here. And hey, tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Now, turn off the lights. Maybe let a fan run for some gentle white noise. And let's begin tonight's journey together. It was a Tuesday morning, and the light in my kitchen felt heavier than usual, like it knew something I didn't. I was standing over the stove, flipping the last pancake for my daughter, Zariah. While the washing machine hummed in the corner, I moved quietly, almost floating from counter to sink, years of learning how to exist without making noise, years of trying not to irritate the man I used to think was my safe place. At exactly 6 o'clock, just like a clock striking doom, my husband, Tamain, walked downstairs, sharp suit, perfect tie, eyes glued to his phone. I set his coffee down before he even reached the chair, hot, black, and bitter. He always said it had to taste strong enough to remind a person of discipline, an academically debatable phrase if I'd ever heard one, but I never argued. He sipped it, winced, and said, "It's a little bitter today." That was it. No good morning, no glance, no smile. I apologized softly, anyway old habits are stubborn. Zariah came bouncing down moments later, bright as sunrise, her little arms wrapped around me, then around him. He finally put his phone down long enough to kiss the top of her head. For a second, the house didn't feel so cold. Then breakfast ended. He grabbed his briefcase. He walked past me like I was air. No kiss, no goodbye, not even a flicker of acknowledgement. Old age wisdom floated in my mind suddenly. A home without kindness becomes a house without doors. I didn't fully understand it then, but I would. After they left, I cleaned. It's strange how cleaning becomes therapy when silence is the only thing that answers you. The jokes in my mind tried to lighten the mood, like how I'd probably win a gold medal if folding laundry were an Olympic sport, but jokes don't fill emotional voids. They just make them echo. Around noon, I picked up Zariah from school. She told me about her 5 gold stars, how her teacher praised her, how her friends shared snacks. Her joy was the kind of joy that tugged you back from your own darkness. But when we got home, a courier pulled up. "Package for Nala," he said. I frowned. I hadn't ordered anything. Inside the thick brown envelope was a stack of papers so heavy they felt alive. The words at the top punched the air right out of my lungs. Petition for dissolution of marriage. My name, his name, cold accusations typed in bold. Failure as a wife. Failure as a mother, unstable, irrational, unfit. He wanted everything custody of Zariah, the house, the assets, my life. My knees buckled, the papers scattered across the floor like broken glass. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The front door opened. He walked in early, loosened his tie, looked down at me on the floor, but not with concern, with irritation. "It means exactly what you read," he said calmly, almost bored. "You failed. You don't deserve Zariah. You don't deserve anything." Those words sliced deeper than any knife. And still, he stood there, adjusting his cufflinks like he was preparing for a dinner reservation. Then he delivered the blow that shattered whatever was left of me. "My lawyer says even Zariah will testify about your incompetence." Testify? My 7-year-old child. That night, I sat by her bed, brushing her hair as she slept. She looked so peaceful, like the world couldn't touch her. But the truth was already touching us. It was strangling us. The house was dark, silent, suffocating. My mind raced. I didn't have money. I didn't have a lawyer. I didn't have access to our accounts. I didn't even have my wedding jewelry. He'd taken it all. I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. But there was one quirky fact I remembered suddenly from a documentary I once watched. Octopuses can escape from almost any enclosure, if there's even a tiny gap. That strange thought lodged itself in me. Maybe strength could come from unexpected places. Maybe I didn't need a door, I needed a gap, a crack, a break in his perfect plan. And I promised myself, even in that broken whisper of a moment, if there's a way out, I'll find it, even if I had to crawl through it like an octopus in the dark. The next morning didn't feel like morning at all, more like a long continuation of a nightmare I hadn't woken from. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that presses its weight on your chest. I brewed tea just to keep my hands busy, but even the steam rising from the cup looked tired, like it wanted to leave this house as much as I did. I knew I had to act quickly. Every hour that passed felt like another inch of rope tightening. My first thought was the emergency savings, our joint account. I had always believed it was our cushion, our safety net. But when I opened the banking app, expecting to see the reassuring numbers, zero. A clean, merciless zero. I refreshed the app 3 times, then again. It still stared back, flat as a heartbeat on a monitor. My stomach dropped. My arms went numb. I scrolled through the transaction history with fingers that barely moved. And there it was. Withdrawal after withdrawal. Months of careful siphoning, like a thief sneaking in the night wearing my husband's skin. Every transfer led to an account number I didn't recognize. For a second, I thought it might be some glitch, some mistake. But deep down, I knew better. He'd planned this. Old age wisdom whispered inside me. A person preparing to leave will always start packing quietly. I didn't realize I'd been watching him pack for months. My reflection in the screen trembled. I felt like I was shrinking inside my own skin. If money was oxygen in legal battles, he just suffocated me. A small joke slipped into my mind, not because I found anything funny, but because sometimes humor shows up during panic like an uninvited relative at Thanksgiving. Well, I muttered to myself, at least the bank didn't overcharge me for the zero. Tiny relief, quickly gone. I stumbled to my bedroom, thinking maybe I had something of value left. Maybe my wedding jewelry, maybe my mother's earrings, maybe something I could pawn just to buy an hour of legal hope. But when I opened the jewelry box, it was empty. Not misplaced, not stolen by a stranger. Taken by the man who vowed to protect me. My throat tightened. This wasn't just betrayal, it was strategic destruction. Then his voice echoed from the hallway. Sharp, irritated, impatient. Nala, did you iron my blue shirt, or do I have to do everything myself? I froze. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. He spoke as if nothing had happened, as if yesterday he hadn't gutted my entire world. I stepped out slowly. Where's my jewelry? To Maine. He didn't even look up from his tie. Sold it. You never wore it anyway. My jaw dropped. You sold my wedding set. He shrugged. Community property? No, I whispered. It belonged to my mother. He paused. Barely, then should have hidden it better. It was that sentence, cold and practical, that finally snapped something inside me. I realized then that I could no longer afford to be silent, soft, or small. Silence had never protected me. Silence had fed him. But I had Zariah to think of, her soft hands, her gentle hugs, her innocent trust. And I couldn't let him erase me from her world. So I swallowed my rage, pressed it deep, and called the only person I could think of an old friend working in legal aid. She didn't hesitate. Nala, meet with Attorney Abernathy. He's not fancy, but he's good and honest. Honest, a word I hadn't heard in my house in years. I didn't have money for an Uber, so I gathered whatever cash I could find, spare change from coat pockets. a wrinkled $5 bill hidden between recipe books, and took the bus. I sat near the window, trying not to crumble. People boarded, laughed, scrolled their phones. Life moved. The world kept turning, indifferent. By the time I reached the old strip mall, the sky had clouded over. I climbed the stairs to the second floor where chipped paint curled at the corners of the railing. A crooked sign above the door read, Attorney Abernathy, Family Law and Mediation. Inside, the air smelled like old books and lemon cleaner. Attorney Abernathy looked up, middle-aged, tired eyes, thick glasses, but kind, the kind that doesn't perform kindness, but simply exists in it. He listened, every word. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer sympathy too early. He let the storm come out of me. After I finished, he sighed through his nose, long and heavy. Nala, your husband didn't just prepare for divorce. He prepared for war. I know, I whispered. Can you help me? His jaw tightened. Money can wait. Your daughter cannot. I nearly cried right there. He pulled out a thick folder, copies of the lawsuit documents. He showed me the photographs, dirty dishes, clutter, laundry piles. Context, he asked. I had a fever, 3 days. He refused to help. He nodded. Manipulation of evidence, classic. Then he showed me the credit card statements. Not mine, I said. He used that card. Did you report misuse? No, he was my husband. His eyes softened. Trust is beautiful until weaponized. A quirky fact popped into my mind, suddenly almost absurd. Sea cucumbers eject their guts when threatened, as a defense mechanism. At that moment, I felt like one. Everything inside me was spilling out just to survive. Then he showed me the psychologist's report, Dr. Valencia. Words like unfit, unstable, detrimental sliced into me. I never met her, I whispered. She says she observed you in public. That's impossible. He stared at the report, his brow furrowed. Something about this stinks. I swallowed, hard. Attorney Abernathy. She wore a perfume I recognized. He glanced up. It's the same scent I smelled on my husband's shirt. He blinked, then leaned forward. Nala, are you telling me the expert witness is the affair? I think so. He let out a low whistle. That might be the crack in their fortress. Old age wisdom came again. The higher the deceit, the harder the fall if you know where to push. And I was starting to see where to push. Before I left, Attorney Abernathy warned me, stay calm. Whatever happens next, don't let them provoke you. Why? Because they want you to explode. I exhaled slowly, but what if I can't hold it in? He gave a small smile, then learn from turtles. Turtles. They breathe through their rear ends under stress. I blinked. He laughed softly. Point is, creatures adapt under pressure. You will too. It was an academically debatable metaphor, but strangely comforting. As I stepped out of his office, my phone vibrated. A text from T-Main Zariah's coming home late. Don't ask why. Another blow, another reminder of what he was taking away. But I walked out of that strip mall standing a little taller than when I walked in. Because even though my world was collapsing, I had found something unexpected. A gap, a crack, a small place to breathe, and maybe, just maybe, my way out. That evening, the house felt colder than usual, as if the walls themselves were withdrawing from me, siding with him. I sat on the edge of the couch, waiting for Zariah, counting the minutes by the sound of my uneven breaths. The clock ticked loudly, like it was mocking me. Every tick felt like a message. You're losing her. At 9 p.m. Headlights flashed through the living room window. The front door opened, and laughter spilled in bright, carefree. belonging to a child who didn't know her world was being torn apart. Mommy Zariah burst through the doorway, carrying a massive bag full of toys, candy, and glittery things. And behind her, Timmain stood tall, smug, wearing a scent that wasn't mine, the same perfume I had smelled clinging to his shirt days ago, the one that clung to Valencia. The air thickened instantly. He didn't even try to hide it. He didn't have to. In his mind, he had already erased me. I forced a smile for Zariah. "Where were you? Princess? Why didn't Daddy tell me?" Before she could answer, Timmain cut in. "She was with me, and you didn't need to know." His words cracked like a whip. "Didn't need to. I was worried sick." He raised a brow, pretending confusion. "Why?" "Because you don't have anything better to do. You should be grateful I'm giving her memories. You can't." There it was, the jab meant to make me react. The one attorney Abernathy had warned me about. I bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted iron. But then, I smelled it again. That perfume, soft, floral, expensive. Not mine. I inhaled a little deeper, and my stomach dropped. It wasn't just on his shirt. It was on his neck, his wrists, his hair. Fresh. My voice came out small. "You were with her." He smirked. "Be careful. Nala, jealousy doesn't look good on you." That line, that dismissive, taunting line, it sliced me clean. He leaned closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear. "Do you really think a woman like me would stay with someone like you forever? You're nothing. Nala, nothing." His words didn't just sting, they hollowed. And yet, Zariah tugged on my sleeve right then, grounding me. "Mommy, guess what? Daddy bought me a new tablet. It's pink and sparkly and has a camera." I nodded, swallowing every ounce of hurt. "Oh, that's wonderful, baby." But then something strange caught my eye, just a tiny detail most people would miss. When Zaria ran upstairs, she clutched her old cracked tablet in her arms, not the new one, not the shiny one, the broken one she hid under her pillow every night. Why? Why choose the damaged one over the perfect one? A thought flickered in my mind, quiet, curious, but I ignored it. There was too much pain swirling inside me to chase small mysteries. Later that night, after the dishes were done and the hallway lights dimmed, I found myself wandering into the kitchen where his whispers still clung to the air. I rested my hands against the counter, letting a slow breath escape. I needed wisdom, any wisdom, to anchor me. Something my grandmother once said floated up. A snake sheds its skin before it attacks. Humans shed their kindness. I realized then it wasn't that I had failed, it was that he had transformed. The next morning, I woke to the sound of forced laughter coming from downstairs, a brittle sound, one that felt rehearsed. I stepped into the hallway to see a scene that nearly made me lose my balance. There they were, Timmain sitting at the dining table, feeding Zariah pancakes he clearly didn't cook. She giggled. He grinned. He never cooked for her, not once, not since she was born. He looked up at me with a smile so artificial it could have been made of plastic. "Good morning," he said, voice thick with fake sweetness. "I thought I'd do something nice today." "I see," I murmured. He gestured to Zariah. "Princess, tell Mommy what we talked about." Zariah looked between us, hesitating, struggling with some invisible tug of war. Daddy said that when I live with him, Mommy will have more time to rest. There it was, the manipulation. Innocent words twisted into daggers. A small joke surfaced in my mind, dark humor, but still humor. Well, at least he finally admitted I deserve rest. But that joke stayed locked inside me. Timmain stood abruptly, straightening his shirt, acting as though he were preparing for a press conference rather than breakfast. He walked past me, pausing just inches from my face. "When I win custody," he whispered, "I expect you to leave without making a scene. Dignity suits you better than desperation." My hands curled into fists. But I didn't explode. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Because for the first time, the quiet tablet under Zariah's pillow flashed in my mind again. Something was there, something important, something he didn't know about. A spark lit inside me, not hope, not yet, but the tiny rumble of intuition. A quirky fact surfaced in my head again. Out of nowhere, octopuses can escape through holes the size of a coin if it means survival. Maybe I, too, had a hidden exit. Later that afternoon, when Zariah napped, I slipped quietly into her room. Her little hands still clutched the cracked tablet like a treasure. I touched it gently, and she stirred. "Mommy," she whispered sleepily. "Yes, princess." She hugged the tablet closer. "This one stays with me, the new one. That's Daddy's." That sentence hit me like a revelation. The old, cracked, outdated tablet was hers, and she trusted it. Something was hidden there, something she hadn't said, something she hadn't shown. But I didn't push her, not yet. Instead, I kissed her forehead and walked out, heart pounding. For the first time in months, I felt something shifting. Not victory, but the beginning of a path toward truth. The next morning felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, one wrong step, and everything would crumble beneath me. I tried to steady myself with routine folding laundry, wiping counters that were already clean, making breakfast I knew no one but me would eat. Sometimes survival looks like pretending nothing is falling apart. Nearly everything I did felt robotic, but I kept going because stillness was more terrifying than motion. Stillness meant my thoughts could catch me. I checked the clock every few minutes. Today was mediation day, our chance to settle things peacefully. A joke, really. Peace wasn't on the menu, only humiliation and force. By noon, Zariah had been picked up by my sister to avoid the tension. The house felt eerily hollow without her voice. With her gone, the walls echoed everything I tried to bury. I grabbed my purse, my breath shaky, and headed out to meet Attorney Abernathy at the courthouse. As I stepped outside, old age wisdom whispered again. When someone shows you their shadow, don't go chasing the light behind them. It meant stop making excuses for evil. At least, that's how I heard it that morning. The mediation room looked like a small conference space you'd find tucked behind a dentist's office stale air. Uncomfortable chairs, a round table meant to encourage cooperation. It didn't, not today. Attorney Cromwell was already there, sitting beside Timane, flipping papers with the arrogance of someone who thought he owned justice. Timane leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, smirk barely tucked away. He didn't even look at me. He looked through me, the way someone glances at an empty chair. I sat beside Attorney Abernathy, who offered me a calm nod. "Remember," he whispered, "stillness is your strength today." Stillness, me. Two words that had never been friends. The mediator entered an older woman with soft gray hair and heavy glasses that rested at the tip of her nose. Her tone was gentle but firm, like she had broken up her share of schoolyard fights. "We are here," she began, "to explore a settlement that avoids unnecessary court proceedings." Cromwell immediately cleared his throat loud. "Theatrical. There is nothing to explore. My client's position is already clear." He slid a thick folder across the table. "Nala will receive no property, no child custody, no financial support. She will vacate the marital home within 7 days." I nearly choked on air. Abernathy leaned forward, nostrils flaring. "You expect her to sign away her entire life." Cromwell's smile was snake-like. Correction, she has no life to sign away. The husband provided everything. We're simply taking back what is his. T-Main sat there with perfect calm, like a man admiring his own cruelty. Abernathy inhaled sharply. We reject the proposal. Cromwell shrugged. Then we go to trial. And trust me, counselor, we will win. Mrs. Nala is... He scanned his papers for dramatic effect. Emotionally unstable, financially irresponsible, and unfit to parent. I felt the words strike me physically. My throat burned. Cromwell leaned in, voice dripping venom. The more she fights, the uglier this will get. When we reveal the expert testimony, he tapped a folder labeled Valencia. Doctor, no judge will hesitate. My pulse spiked. Abernathy narrowed his eyes. So, you're using a psychologist your client happens to be intimately involved with. Dead silence. Cromwell froze. T-Main's jaw twitched. I nearly gasped. Abernathy continued, tone deceptively casual. Oh, please. You didn't think I wouldn't notice her in the hallway with your client, whispering, laughing. He turned to me. He was careless. It was the first flicker of hope I'd felt in weeks. But Cromwell quickly recovered. You have no proof of that. He turned to the mediator again. We stand firm. The wife signs the agreement or we proceed to court. I felt myself trembling. My fingers dug into my knees under the table. No, the word escaped me before I could think. Cromwell arched a brow. Excuse me? No, I repeated. I'm not signing anything. His lips curled, then prepare to be destroyed. Mrs. Nala. The mediator looked rattled. Let's all take a deep breath. But Cromwell slammed his briefcase shut. There will be no agreement. He and T-Main stood up. The meeting was over. As they left, something happened that chilled me more than all the threats combined. T-Main paused in the doorway, turned slightly, and whispered, Enjoy your time with her. It won't last. My blood froze. Abernathy placed a hand on my shoulder. Don't listen to him. We'll fight. I'm scared, I whispered. He nodded. You should be, but fear is fuel. The night before trial, I barely slept. I sat in Zoraya's room, watching her chest rise and fall. Every breath she took was another reminder of what I stood to lose. Around 2 a.m., I noticed it again, her cracked old tablet glowing faintly under her pillow. For a moment, I reached out to touch it, maybe even look at what she treasured so much. But something stopped me. A mother's intuition. Maybe a sense that the secret wasn't ready yet. I kissed her forehead and whispered, I won't let him take you. But the truth was painful. He had more power, more evidence, more lies. Only one thing was on my side. Zoraya didn't trust his new tablet. She clung to the broken one. And broken things often hold the truths people don't expect. The next morning, we entered the courtroom. It felt like stepping onto a stage where the script was already written, and I was cast as the failure. Cromwell strutted in like an actor ready for his big performance. Valencia entered next, hair perfect, perfume thick, confidence absurdly high. Everything inside me screamed. The mother-in-law tension between me and Valencia simmered under my skin. Even though she wasn't family, she carried herself like she owned my household, my child, my husband, my role. But I stayed still. Stillness is strength. Stillness is survival. The judge entered. The battle began, and every word spoken tightened the noose around me. But somewhere in the courtroom, unseen by all of us, a 7-year-old girl held the key that would blow everything apart. I just didn't know it yet. Walking into the courtroom that day felt like stepping into a refrigerator. The air was sharp, cold enough to sting the inside of my chest. Every footstep echoed not loud, but hollow, like the building itself already knew what was coming for me. Attorney Abernathy whispered, "Stay calm. Do not let them provoke you." I nodded, though my throat was too tight to speak. Calm felt as unreachable as the moon. Across the room, Tamain sat tall, polished, smug like a man posing for a magazine cover titled, "How to Ruin Your Wife in 10 Simple Steps." Valencia sat behind him wearing her signature floral perfume and a blazer so crisp it could cut glass. She looked confident, serene, almost angelic, if angels committed fraud. And then the judge entered. For a moment, everything in me went silent. The courtroom's wooden walls closed in. The weight of years of disappointment pressed onto my shoulders. This was it, the day they would strip me of my daughter. Old age wisdom came again, right when I needed grounding. People sharpen knives behind smiles. I had just never expected the smiles to be from my own husband. Cromwell went first, and he was merciless. He presented the staged photos of the messy house, the manipulated credit card statements, and then he introduced the star of his circus. The plaintiff calls Dr. Valencia, expert child psychologist. She walked up with the grace of a swan and the heart of a rattlesnake. "Your Honor," she said softly, "my observations of Mrs. Nala's behavior indicate deep emotional instability." Her words slithered across the courtroom. Every sentence twisted reality like warm wax. She screamed at her daughter publicly. She showed signs of hysteria. She neglected her child's emotional needs. She even used academic language that sounded smart enough to fool anyone. A persistent maternal dysregulation pattern. I swear she made half of these terms up. But the judge nodded as if every syllable were truth handed down from the heavens. While she spoke, I kept my eyes on her hands. They trembled slightly, not guilt, anticipation. She thought she had won. Part of me wanted to laugh at the absurdity. Another part wanted to faint. A quirky fact popped into my mind because sometimes anxiety throws random trivia at you. Certain fish play dead when threatened. In that moment, I understood them. I wanted to play dead too. When it was Abernathy's turn to cross-examine, he asked calmly, "Dr. Valencia, did you personally interact with my client?" "No," she said. "Did she ever consent to be evaluated?" "No." "Did you warn her she was being observed?" "No." "Then you diagnosed a mother without her knowledge, based on fragments of moments you saw from a distance." Valencia smiled. "Naturalistic observation is more accurate, counselor." Abernathy clenched his jaw, or more convenient. He tried, truly, but her lies were wrapped in professional ribbons, and she never faltered. By the time the judge called me to the stand, I already felt defeated. My voice cracked as I began describing my life as a mother, my routines, my sacrifices. I told the truth. I told everything. But Cromwell tore into me like a wolf smelling blood. "So you admit you screamed. You admit you didn't report the credit card misuse. You admit you let the house get messy. You admit you cried hysterically. You admit you lost control." Every admit was a lash. I tried to stay calm the way Abernathy begged me to, but the photos, the lies, the ridicule, it all hit too hard. My voice rose, trembled, broke. Tears came down without invitation. And Cromwell smiled. He had succeeded. He wanted me emotional. He needed me emotional. Because emotional meant unstable. I felt like I was drowning, reaching for something to hold on to, but the water kept rising. Every answer made me look worse. Then Cromwell held up the photo, that photo of me crying in the bedroom that night, looking broken, devastated, and yes, hysterical. Is this or is this not you? It's yes. Captured in your natural state. No, he provoked me. Thank you, Cromwell said smoothly. No further questions. I collapsed into my seat, shaking. I had walked right into their trap. The judge's face was unreadable, but I could feel the verdict forming like a storm cloud. That night, I barely made it home before breaking down again. My mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflict story for the day. Easy. It wasn't my mother-in-law this time. It was the woman my husband slept with, playing the role of mother better than me in the courtroom. And the academically debatable phrase of the day, maternal dysregulation pattern, a fake concept Valencia weaponized like a blade. I crawled into Zoraya's room, sobbing. She was asleep, clutching her cracked tablet again. I whispered to her sleeping form, "I'm so sorry, baby, I'm losing you." And then miraculously, her tiny hand reached up and touched my cheek in her sleep. As if she knew, as if she felt my fear, as if she sensed the battle wasn't over. And in that moment, something inside me ignited quiet but powerful. A mother's instinct, a mother's resolve. I didn't know it yet, but the thing I feared losing most my daughter was the very thing that would save me. Because in that cracked tablet, she held like a lifeline. Live the truth. The truth I was about to discover. The truth that would turn a courtroom into a battlefield. And bring my enemies to their knees. The night before the sentencing felt like walking barefoot over shattered memories. Every corner of the house whispered something: his insults in the kitchen, his silence in the living room, Valencia's perfume still haunting the doorway. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. My mind kept circling the same terrifying truth. I was going to lose my daughter. Around 3 a.m., I drifted into Zoraya's room. She was bundled under her blanket, arms wrapped tight around that old cracked tablet. Why did she cling to it so fiercely? Why not the shiny new one her father bought? I brushed hair from her forehead and whispered, "I love you, princess, always." She stirred, half asleep. "I love you too, Mommy." Her voice was small, fragile, but it held me together. That moment, a sleepy hug in a dimly lit room, felt like the last piece of me he hadn't destroyed. Old age wisdom echoed in my mind. When a storm tries to take your home, hold on to the foundation. She was my foundation. The next morning came too fast. I walked into the courtroom feeling like a ghost. My eyes were swollen, my hands cold. Attorney Abernathy tried to reassure me, but even he looked grim. Across the room, Tamaine looked like a man already celebrating. Valencia sat straighter than she ever had, wearing a cream dress and the same floral perfume the smell of deceit now burned into my memory. Cromwell radiated confidence. He tapped his pen against the table like a man already giving a victory speech in his head. And I sat quietly, feeling my world narrow into a single point of dread. A quirky fact popped into my mind again. Probably from nerves male seahorses carry their babies. A thought I found mildly entertaining for 1 second, then painfully unfair the next. Why couldn't my burden be carried by anyone else, even for a moment? But the judge entered, and all wandering thoughts disappeared. He began reading the summary of evidence, each word heavier than the one before. The photographs showing household neglect, financial irresponsibility in the credit card records, emotional instability supported by expert testimony, the defendant's courtroom outburst confirming psychological concerns. Every sentence was a nail in the coffin. I felt myself unraveling silently, breath by breath. The judge's tone grew decisive. In consideration of the evidence presented, the court finds... Then it happened. A small voice, Steady, clear, cutting straight through the tension. "Your Honor, can I say something?" Every head snapped toward the back. The courtroom doors had cracked open, and there stood my 7-year-old daughter, Zariah. In her school uniform, hair slightly messy, clutching the old cracked tablet. My heart lurched so hard I nearly collapsed. "What's Zariah?" I gasped. The fear on T-Main's face was instant, sharp, electric. "What are you doing here? Get out!" he barked. His panic was the first honest reaction I'd seen from him in months. The judge rapped his gavel. "Mr. T-Main, sit down. I will hear the child." Cromwell leapt to his feet. "Your Honor, absolutely not. This is improper." "Enough," the judge said, glaring him silent. Zariah walked forward, tiny steps echoing in the enormous room. She didn't look at her father. She didn't look at me. She kept her eyes on the judge. "Your Honor." Her voice trembled only once. "I want to show you something my mommy doesn't know." I felt my heart stop. "What is it?" "Sweetheart," the judge asked gently. Zariah raised the tablet. It's important." Cromwell practically screamed, "Objection. A child's device is not verified evidence." The judge cut him off with steel in his voice. "Clerk, connect the tablet. Now!" The clerk hurried over, hands shaking. He connected the cable, and the courtroom monitors flickered to life. A gallery of videos appeared. Old, low quality, some hidden in shadows. The truth was about to breathe. "Which one?" "Sweetheart," the clerk asked softly. "That one," she pointed to a thumbnail of the living room, partially blocked by a flower pot. My stomach twisted. She had filmed something big, something she'd hidden, something she'd carried like a secret shield. "Go ahead," the judge said. Zariah tapped play. The screen brightened. The room in the video was our living room. The angle was low, behind the large flower pot, the spot where Zariah hid when she played hide-and-seek. And then, 2 familiar figures walked in. T-Main and Valencia. Not the polished courtroom version of her, but Valencia in loungewear, hair down, giggling as she wrapped her arms around my husband's neck. A gasp echoed through the courtroom. I felt the floor tilt. The voices played next. Valencia laughed. "Are you sure your plan will work? Your wife is so stupid." My heart cracked. T-Main's voice followed, dripping with cruelty. "Stupid and submissive. She won't suspect anything. All the money is already in your account, baby." The courtroom exploded with murmurs. My lungs constricted. The judge froze mid-breath. Cromwell dropped his pen. The video continued. "I can't wait until the verdict," T-Main said. "As soon as I get custody, we'll sell this house and move far away." And the child Valencia asked, "Oh, she's easy," he scoffed. "Just give her a tablet. She'll forget her mother. You'll be her new mom, a better one." My vision blurred. He wanted to erase me, completely, erase me from my own child's life. But the worst blow came next. Valencia whispered, "What about your wife's breakdown? What if the court doesn't believe me?" T-Main grinned. "She'll break. I'll provoke her, make her cry. I already filmed her once. One more meltdown in court is all we need." And then they kissed, in my home, in my living room, planning my destruction. I felt myself fold inward, a moment of grief so raw I thought I'd pass out. Then, "Enough, turn that off." T-Main lunged from his seat. "Officers," the judge roared. "Restrain him." 2 guards grabbed him, twisting his arms behind him as he thrashed, shouting incoherent lies. Valencia tried to run. A guard blocked her path. She sank to the floor, sobbing. Zariah watched silently, calm, brave, unshaken. She had saved me. My daughter, my little girl, had saved me. I covered my mouth, sobbing into my hands as the world shifted entirely. Justice wasn't blind today. It had eyes, and they were watching through the lens of a cracked tablet. The courtroom had changed. Moments ago, it felt like a coffin, sealed, dark, suffocating. But now, it felt like a storm had ripped the lid clean off. The video ended, the screen went black. Silence fell heavy, trembling, electric. For a full 5 seconds, no one moved. Even breathing seemed disrespectful. Valencia was crumpled on the floor. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. No trace of that confident, expert psychologist left. Her perfume, once sweet, now smelled sour, spoiled by fear. Tamaine sat pinned under the guard's grip, face red, eyes wild with panic. The man who strutted into the courtroom like a king now looked like a child caught stealing from the church donation box. And Zariah, my little girl. She stood by the clerk's desk, clutching the edge gently, like she didn't want to disturb the adults but knew she'd done something necessary. Her feet barely touched the floor. Her bravery swallowed the whole room. Old age wisdom rose in me like a warm tide. A small hand can carry the truth better than a grown liar. The judge finally exhaled. A long, fierce breath. Then, "Officers, bring Ms. Valencia to the witness stand," he said, voice flat and cold. 2 guards lifted Valencia to her feet. She stumbled, sobbing, hair disheveled, her blazer twisted. She looked like the truth had dragged her underwater and left her gasping on shore. When she reached the stand, the judge fixed his gaze on her, those eyes sharp as iron. "Basaind." "Ms. Valencia," he began, "do you deny the authenticity of the video we just witnessed?" She shook her head violently. No, I was manipulated, he promised." Her words tangled into sobs. The judge didn't soften. "Did you testify under oath that the defendant, Mrs. Nala, was emotionally unstable and unfit to mother her child?" I... She covered her face. "Yes. But he told me to, he said he..." "Answer the question." "Yes," she screamed. "Yes, I lied." Gasps erupted through the gallery. Cromwell buried his head in his hands. I actually saw a single bead of sweat slide down his neck like it was trying to flee the sinking ship. Next, the judge turned to him. "Attorney Cromwell," the judge said slowly, "were you aware your expert witness had a personal relationship with the plaintiff?" Cromwell's voice cracked. "No, Your Honor, I assure you, Did you verify her observations independently?" We assumed. "Did you encourage the defendant's emotional outburst during cross-examination?" Cromwell froze. "Your Honor, this is all I did was..." But the judge slammed his gavel so hard even I jumped. "You manipulated this court." Cromwell flinched as if the words physically struck him. "And now," the judge continued, voice rising, "you will answer to the Ethics Committee and face charges of professional misconduct." For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a spark of justice. Not hope justice. Now it was Tamaine's turn. The guards forced him to sit upright. His wrists glinted in handcuffs. Sweat dampened his collar. He didn't look like my husband. He looked like a stranger wearing the mask of someone I once loved. "Mr. Tamaine," the judge said, his voice iron again, "you stand accused of conspiracy to commit fraud, parental manipulation, perjury, emotional abuse, and financial theft." My heart hammered. I had waited years to hear someone say out loud what he had done. The judge flipped through the documents on his bench, each page landing like a blow. "You emptied your joint account, You staged photographic evidence. You orchestrated false psychological reports. You attempted to provoke and record your wife during emotional distress. You brought your mistress into your marital home and instructed her to lie under oath. Each accusation stripped another layer off him, his pride, his arrogance, his crafted persona. And then the judge turned toward me. "Mrs. Nala," he said, his tone softening in a way that made my chest ache. "Please rise." I stood, knees trembling. "This court recognizes your suffering. It recognizes you were manipulated, abused, and targeted. It recognizes your devotion to your daughter and the injustice you've endured." My throat tightened. Tears blurred the room. The judge raised his gavel. "Full custody of the minor, Zariah, is awarded to her mother, Mrs. Nala." The gavel fell. I gasped. A soft, broken sound. Everything inside me gave way. Relief hit hard, like wind knocked from my lungs. But the judge wasn't done. "Mrs. Nala, do you wish to file for divorce on grounds of adultery, fraud, and emotional abuse?" I lifted my chin. "Yes, Your Honors." "Then the divorce is granted immediately." The gavel cracked again. I cried. Attorney Abernathy squeezed my hand. Zariah's eyes lit up. But justice wasn't finished. "Assets in the plaintiff's name will be frozen pending criminal investigation," the judge continued. "Funds stolen from the defendant will be returned. The marital home now belongs exclusively to Mrs. Nala and her daughter." Cromwell sagged. Valencia whimpered. Temain clenched his jaw so hard he looked ready to break teeth. "Officers," the judge commanded, "take Mr. Temain and Ms. Valencia into custody." 2 guards grabbed them. Valencia sobbed as they hauled her away. But it was Temain's expression I'll never forget. He looked at me, suddenly really looked, not with anger, not with triumph, with fear. Because the woman he tried to bury had risen stronger, clearer, unstoppable. For the first time, he realized the truth. He had destroyed everything. Except me. After the guards dragged them out, the courtroom exhaled as if everyone had been holding breath for too long. The world slowed, softened. Zariah slipped her small hand into mine. "Mommy," she whispered, "are we okay now?" I knelt, pulling her tightly against my chest. My tears soaked her hair as I held her with the strength of every mother who ever fought for her child. "We're more than okay," I said. "We're free." Walking out of that courtroom felt like stepping into sunlight after months underground. People stared, some in shock, some in awe, but I didn't care. All I cared about was the weight of my daughter in my arms and the truth that saved us. A cracked tablet, a brave child, a lie exposed. The mother-in-law conflict of the day Valencia tried to play family, where she didn't belong and the universe escorted her out. The academically debatable phrase, maternal dysregulation, turns out the real dysregulation was in the courtroom's air conditioning and in Valencia's moral compass. The quirky fact hummingbirds can't walk, but they can fly backward. That day, I couldn't walk forward without shaking, but somehow, with my daughter beside me, I felt like I could fly backward through the pain and come out whole. Sometimes life's victories aren't graceful. They're raw, messy, loud. And sometimes the hero isn't the strongest one, but the smallest. The aftermath rolled in faster than I expected. Court orders were processed, papers signed, officers escorted the guilty away. Reporters swarmed like bees, sniffing a cracked hive, chasing the story of the 7-year-old heroine with the broken tablet. It was everywhere on local news, social feeds, even whispered in grocery store lines. But when the noise faded, when the court's heavy doors finally shut behind us, all I felt was the cool air hitting my face, the kind of cool that means freedom. Zaria held my hand tightly as we walked down the courthouse steps, her tiny fingers wrapped around mine like a reminder that she wasn't just my daughter. She had become my shield when I thought I had nothing left to fight with. I scooped her into my arms and kissed the top of her head. "We're okay." I kept whispering, "We're okay now." But internally, waves of emotion crashed and receded, crashing and receding, relief, exhaustion, disbelief, gratitude, all blending until I couldn't tell where one feeling ended and another began. And underneath it all, rage, not the wild kind, the quiet, simmering kind that forms after survival, the kind you learn to breathe through. Old age wisdom came to me again, like it always does at the perfect time. What nearly breaks you can also remake you. And now, standing in the sunlight with my daughter, I believed it. The first month after the trial felt like detox. Every room in the house held echoes of pain, his insults, Valencia's perf. Their lies tangled in the curtains like dust, so I made a decision. We moved. Not to another mansion or anything glamorous, just a warm, modest 3-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood filled with families, schools, and little bakeries that smelled like cinnamon and butter. Zaria picked her room immediately, the one with the sunlight that spilled across the carpet like warm honey. I watched her twirl in it, carefree, and my heart squeezed in the tender way hearts do when they're healing. The mother-in-law conflict of this chapter, let's just say I didn't hear a peep from her. Not a text, not a call. I'm pretty sure she locked herself indoors out of shame. I don't blame her. The truth exposed more than her son. It exposed the culture she built around him, a culture where wives were expected to endure, obey, and never ask where the missing pieces of themselves went. I wasn't living in that world anymore. One afternoon, after settling into our new apartment, I found Zaria sitting on her bed, humming while playing with her cracked tablet. Yes, the same one. The tablet I once wanted to throw away. Now I could have placed it in a museum labeled, "The Device That Saved Everything." I sat next to her. "Princess," I said, brushing her hair gently. "Can I ask you something?" She nodded. "Why did you record Daddy and Auntie Valencia that night?" She swung her legs, thinking, because Daddy was lying. My breath caught. And I didn't want Mommy to be sad anymore. Her voice was so soft it nearly unraveled me. Children see more than we give them credit for. They feel what we hide. They understand what we try to bury. "And why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked. Zaria looked at the floor. Daddy said, "Mommy must not know his secrets. He said he'd be mad." I hugged her tightly. "You did the right thing," I said. "You saved Mommy." Her arms wrapped around my neck. "I just want you to be happy," she whispered. And that was when I realized something profound and heartbreaking. The person who fought hardest for me was the one who should have been protected by me. I kissed her forehead. "I am happy," I said, "and we're safe now." With some of the returned funds and the sale of the old house, I started a small catering business. I'd always been good in the kitchen, though Tamaine used to call my cooking passable, but customers didn't agree with him. Orders came in faster than I expected. People wanted birthday cakes, meal preps, pastries, brunch sets. I barely slept some nights, but it was the good kind of exhaustion, the kind that belongs to someone rebuilding. One morning, as I packed lunches, Zaria looked up at me. "Mommy, you smile more now." I paused. She wasn't wrong. "I guess," I said. "That's what happens when your heart starts healing." She nodded, like a wise old soul trapped in a small body. "That's good. Smiles are medicine." A quirky fact slipped out of me, maybe because humor was slowly re-entering my bloodstream. "Did you know octopuses have 3 hearts?" I told her. Her eyes widened. 3. Yes, so even if one breaks, the other 2 keep going. Zaraya giggled. "Mommy, you're like an octopus then." Honestly, I didn't mind that comparison one bit. The months passed gently. And then one day, while playing in the park, Zaraya sat next to me on a bench. The sunlight landed across her cheeks, making her glow in that angelic way children sometimes do when they're about to say something important. "Mommy," she began quietly, "are you ever going to marry again?" I almost choked on my iced tea. "Is that what you're thinking about?" I asked. She shrugged. "Maybe I just want someone nice, someone who won't make you cry." Her words wrapped around my heart like a warm blanket. I smiled softly. "Maybe one day," I said, "but Mommy is learning to love herself first." She nodded thoughtfully. "That's good. Daddy didn't love himself. That's why he was mean." Children say the most academically debatable things, but sometimes they're truer than any therapist's analysis. I sat back, watching her run toward the swings, her laughter echoing across the park. And for the first time in a very, very long time, I breathed without pain. We weren't just survivors. We were something stronger, something softer, something rebuilt. Maybe that's the secret peace doesn't arrive like fireworks. It arrives like this, a child laughing freely, bread rising in the oven, a quiet apartment filled with safety, a heart no longer afraid of the next hour. And as I watch Zaraya pump her legs on the swing, flying higher and higher into the sky, I whispered a promise to myself. This is our new beginning, and we're never going back. The days that followed settled gently around us, like soft dust floating in a quiet room. Life didn't rush anymore. It moved slowly, the way morning light crawls across a windowsill before anyone wakes. I found myself breathing differently, deeper, easier, almost as if my lungs finally remembered what freedom felt like. I'd watch Zaraya sleep sometimes, the rise and fall of her small chest steady and peaceful, and in those moments, the world felt safe again. Not perfect, not magical, just safe. And that was enough. Our little apartment held laughter in its corners now. Warm smells from the kitchen drifted through the rooms. I'd brew tea in the evenings, letting the steam brush against my face while Zaraya colored by the window. Everything in our world felt softer, like a blanket pulled over tired shoulders. People often imagine healing as a triumphant shout, but mine came as a quiet hum, a stillness, a place inside me that stopped shaking. The past didn't vanish. It simply lost its power. It became a story I once lived through, not a cage I still lived in. Sometimes, I'd sit on our balcony at dusk with Zaraya beside me. She'd lean her head on my arm, and the sky would melt from blue into gold. Those were the moments when I realized how far we had come, how far I had come. Not broken, not defeated, just here, present, whole. If you've ever felt lost or abandoned or betrayed, I hope you know this. Your story doesn't end in the place where someone tried to hurt you. It ends in the place where you choose yourself again. And if you want to keep walking with me through more stories, more healing, more surprises, more truth, watch the upcoming videos on this channel.